Hey everybody, welcome to Weekend Hangouts with Tommy and Jeremy. This is Tommy. You are there it is.
I was muted. And I'm Jeremy. What's up?
Hey guys, welcome back. This week we're covering Terminator Genisys that came out in 2015, directed by Alan Taylor, and includes such stars as Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jason Clarke, and Emilia Clarke. So let's talk about it, Jer. What did you think?
Confused. I'll just say confused.
So confused about the timeline, confused about the way that the sequels came about.
Just confused about the overall plot. We can definitely go into details, but they essentially wiped out 30 years of movies for this plot. So, we'll definitely have to talk about that, but that's kind of how I felt.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it's been a while in the making. I think that also when watching the film, this is the fifth in the series, and you tend to think that all of them would kind of come together to do just one main story. And different reviews that I've read, and even from my own personal opinion, I have to say that it feels like that they included maybe the first three, and then number four, Terminator Salvation, kind of just they took it out. They said it doesn't exist. We're just going to jump to five.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't know. It's been so long since I've seen the first three, and I haven't seen Terminator Salvation. That's the one with Christian Bale, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
You didn't miss much. I think a lot of people were excited about the fact that it had Christian Bale, and then it also had Sam Worthington, because there was still a lot of that reverberations off of the Avatar hype. So, yeah. Other than that, it wasn't that great of a film.
All right. Well, let's see. Let me pull up my notes real quick. Maybe. All right. Well, okay. So obviously there's going to be spoilers in here. So if you haven't seen it yet, come back, watch this later. Okay, so here's what I gathered, and I took this note while I was watching the movie, and I really didn't. It was just confused. I had no idea what the hell was going on. So, sent Kyle Reese back to 1984, but when he got there, he found out that he was on a different timeline. So they didn't really explain that too much, other than, they sent a guardian back when Sarah was young to protect her. But did this happen in any of the previous films, or is this new to this plot?
I'm thinking that if I'm remembering correctly, obviously in part two, that was the big game changer, because Arnold comes back and he's sent back not as a Terminator but as a protector for John. So in part three, I can't remember what happens. I can't remember if he's still a protector, and I don't know if he's sent back then for that. See, that's the tie-in that I'm missing too, because he says that he can't tell them who sent him back, and I'm like, well, in part two, John sent Arnold back to protect himself.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Like, maybe I'd have to watch Terminator 3 again to see. Let me see here. Back in time to protect a 19-year-old drifter and his future wife.
Well, I can tell you, it definitely wasn't the one that was sent back to protect John when he was a kid, because Sarah took him out at the end. She dropped him into the hot pool of lava or whatever it was, molten steel, melted him down.
Wasn't that the T-1000 though? The one played by
No,
No.
that was Arnold, the T-800. He said that he couldn't self-destruct, so when he was hooked up to the crane, he handed Sarah the control to the crane, and she lowered him in, and he was looking at John all lovingly, like, "Oh, don't let me go," all Terminator style, or
Right.
sorry, Titanic style, and that was it.
Huh.
So, I read the synopsis for the first 4 films just to maybe pick up on something that I missed, and there's nothing in there. This is definitely an entirely new plot line. So he was sent back farther to protect Sarah because protecting John the first time didn't work. So he wanted to go back further to get to the root of the issue, and that's Sarah.
Yeah, that does leave a big gap because that's something that I didn't think about until you brought it up. Like I was so infatuated with the fact that like they recaptured the portions from the first one where both of them arrive, and he's basically come back to protect her, but he's Kyle Reeser, and then you have the other Terminator that's there, but like the one that was played by the classic Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so they redid some of those scenes from the very first one, like to the point where like there's the 3 punks that are hanging around the garbage can where he's trying to steal his clothes, and then you see old Arnold come in and be like, I'm going to take you out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. This whole fractured timeline thing is, I think, really hurt the movie more than helped it, because it really confused things. So what I gathered was, since John or John's wife or somebody sent back a T-800 to 1973 or whatever, whenever Sarah was like 9, that fractured the timeline. So at any point in the future where they sent people back to 1984, including the very first movie, it was completely different than it was in the first movie when they first sent it back to 1984. So it changed everything. It changed the day of the apocalypse. It changed. I kind of lost track. But it really changed the day of the apocalypse, and that really fucked it up for me because it was always in 1997.
Yeah, because it was like 10 years later, right? Or was it 2007 and it became 2017?
No, it was 1997, and then it became 2017 after the timeline was fractured.
Yeah, it delayed it by 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Yeah, because for some reason the whole time while I was watching the film, I thought, oh, it's only a decade delayed. And I knew that there was some fragment in the timeline, and I just thought it was because the other Arnold took out the T-800, not thinking about the whole factor of him going back to when Sarah was still a kid and helping her there, which, funny enough, he's still in the black leather jacket and the black sunglasses, so that leads you to believe that something had to have happened from the first film when he was sent back, because that's when he incorporated that whole look, right?
Yeah, that was the first set of clothes that he stole off one of the punks, was the black leather jacket and the glasses.
Right. I don't know. I don't want to think about it because it's hurting my brain. Speaking of brain hurt, always to help our thought process, we have our beverages of choice this evening.
And we are both rocking the best damn apple ale tonight. This is my last one, and then I'm back to the Blue Moon True.
Yeah, we always seem to go back to our faithful friends after we have our specialty drinks.
And what are you vaping on there?
I'm finishing off some of my cinnamon stuff, and then I decided to change it up a bit. The guy at the shop that I go to, said that it's the holidays, so they have like this this peppermint flavoring that he likes to do. So I'm going to be switching it up to that. I got to get the name here. Candy cane twister.
Ooh, candy cane.
Yeah. We'll see if it's good. I'm not a big fan of peppermint type stuff, but if it changes it up a little, maybe it's time for that.
Yeah. I've got my my homemade vanilla custard that I'm working on, but I yesterday I placed an order for some new flavors because I'm kind of getting tired of the vanilla custard. So I ordered up glazed donut. Now I don't even remember what I ordered. I ordered like 3 different new flavors, but then I also ordered enough stuff to make another big bottle of vanilla custard just in case I don't like the new stuff.
It's a good idea. I'll have to like try one of yours. Get a bottle, swing a couple bucks, and give it a try because I'm limited on the first of all on the flavors. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's an ungodly amount of flavors that they have, but only a limited amount that I actually like.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was my problem. You know, I was always spending like 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks on a flavor I may or may not like. You know, and so I just decided once I found one to make it myself, and it's cheaper.
it's a good idea. Speaking of which, when I was down there, and sorry to get off topic, but I was talking to the guy about getting a new tank, and they just got some new ones. I can't remember the name, but he was telling me that it's one of the first tanks where you can use it just with a normal, battery and just use the atomizer that you screw into it. But it also comes with your own, what is it called, an RDA atomizer where you can do your own coil on it if you want.
It's RDA.
Yeah. So I might try it. It's $50, so it's not cheap by any means. But I thought it might be a good entryway into the whole concept of some of what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, just about everything's $50. At least the semi decent vaping stuff is at least $50. So it's worth the investments, I guess. It's better than smoking.
Yeah, and more tasteful.
Oh yeah,
tasteful. It's like it's tasty.
More tasty.
Double up. So going over the cast here, we talked about director Alan Taylor, which I'd never heard of before. I'm sure there's a few movies that if I looked at their names, I would recognize them, but not a standout director to me anyway. What about you?
I don't even know who directed it. Alan Taylor. Nope, can't say he's ringing any bells. He directed Thor: The Dark World. 6 episodes of Game of Thrones.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
So
9 episodes of The Sopranos. Yeah, so let's talk about Thor: The Dark World since he directed that.
Well, I liked Thor: The Dark World. Wait, have we seen Thor? Yeah, we've seen. Okay, yeah, I liked it. I mean, it's a Thor movie. Thor's not my go-to character, so if you can make a movie out of it and hold my attention through the whole thing, good for you. But yeah, not a big deal. When I saw that, I was a little discouraged because I thought maybe James Cameron had involvement with it. But reading through some of the trivial information, it looks like that he sponsored the film, like he backed it up.
Yeah, he read the script and he enjoyed it, so he sort of signed off on it. But the thing is that he doesn't have the rights to it. He sold the rights to it temporarily, and that's one of the things that I was reading about was when they made this movie, they had already greenlit 2 sequels. So before you even watch the movie, there's going to be 2 more, regardless of how successful or how big of a failure this was. They want to make 2 more before they have to give the rights back to James Cameron.
Makes sense.
So, that being said, this movie has been a miserable failure. $155 million estimated budget, not including marketing. And up until September 11th, it only grossed $89 million. It's made less than half of its overall budget back. That's a failure.
So yeah, that's a big failure. Well, some of the other things that field some unknowns on this film is, and so going with the cast here is, obviously we had Arnold back, which a lot of people in the fan base thought that was a terrible idea to put the fact that he was in it, because until people saw the commercial, no one really knew. And then when they showed the first trailer for it, which I think was during a Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, it showed a glimpse of him, and everyone was like hyped up for it all of a sudden because he was in there. But and of course he was no longer the governor at that point, so he's getting back into the film thing.
Yeah, I think it was a good idea to show him in the first trailer to build some hype for it, because I mean, how miserably did Terminator Salvation do? You know, that's the only one that he wasn't in, and it did even worse than this movie did. So maybe it was a good idea to put him in the trailer and build that hype.
Very true. I agree, and that was kind of my argument, honestly, too. Is I probably wouldn't have even thought about seeing it had I not known that he was going to be in there. And I think that that's what they thought it from marketing was, we need to get a fan base back because the last one did flop so bad.
Yeah. What did you think of Emilia Clarke as Sarah?
I actually think they nailed it pretty well. Like, I think they did a good job choosing her as a younger version, almost too young, because knowing that Jai Courtney, who plays Kyle Reese, coming into that was like a little rapey to me.
But they're the same age.
Are they?
They are the same age. They were both born in 1986.
Dude, she's just like, even when, okay, in the movie they're doing the photos of them going to jail or whatever, and you see Jai Courtney, and then you see Arnold Schwarzenegger with his robotic smile, obviously, and then here's Sarah Connor, Amelia, you know, clear down here, like you can barely see her face on the screen, and I'm just like, she's a kid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's see. So Linda Hamilton was, how old was she when the first Terminator came out? 30. Now I'm going to have to look it up. Linda Hamilton.
See, and that's the thing, is you're bringing that up. Like, what was her age at that time? On top of, I feel like she was older in the first one too. Like,
so she was 28 when the first Terminator came out, and Emilia Clarke was born in 86, so that's 28, same age.
It's crazy. She just looks so young.
It's because she's British or whatever.
Oh, well, okay. So Jason Clarke and Emilia Clarke both play in this. They both spell their last name the same. So I had to check to see if they're related in any way. They're not, other than just that they both play in this film. But that kind of caught my attention too.
Jason was born in Australia, as well as Jai Courtney. And Amelia's British.
Yeah.
All right. What did you think about Jai Courtney as Kyle Reese? I've got a pretty solid opinion about that, but I want to hear yours first.
Well, and I don't know that we'll agree, but I think I like Jai Courtney. There's a couple of movies that he's played in, and I like his acting. I think he's a good action type actor. He was Bruce Willis's son in the Die Hard, the most recent Die Hard. He'll be in Suicide Squad as Boomerang Man, and I liked him in Jack Reacher as he was fighting off Tom Cruise. Divergent series is probably the one that I would say I didn't like. Probably made him the most money, but I just don't like him in that film.
Mm-hmm. So I like him overall. You know, if I was into dudes, he would definitely do it for me. He's pretty. Probably gives a lot of lady boners, but I just didn't like him in this role. You know, they've had 4 different Kyle Reeses in the 5 different films, and all of them were, I don't want to say gangly, but they were pretty little dudes, you know, and they were just like normal people,
Mm-hmm.
normal guys, but they just happened to be like the general of this army that's trying to take out the Skynet. You know, and then they bring in Jai Courtney, who's fucking ripped to shit, and you know, kind of a pretty boy, so to speak. And I don't know, he had a completely different attitude about the role than any of the previous ones. It didn't do Kyle Reese justice based on the original film. That's all I'll say.
That's a good point. You're right. He is not the best. I will say that the one thing that took me out of the first movie was the fact that you had this big guy like Arnold Schwarzenegger against God, what was his name even? You know, that's Michael Biehn is who played Kyle Reese in the first one, and it's a nobody. You know, and I guess that's why Linda stood out so much, is because she was kind of like really the hero in the film, even though Kyle was the one sent back to kind of help out. The thing that got me is John Connor's always been a big part, a well-known person. So I had to look up Jason Clarke as well to see what he's played in. And there's not a lot of things for him either that really, like, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I know that guy. Like, this is probably my favorite Jason Clarke film.
Yeah, probably. Zero Dark 30 was awesome, but I think he played a dickhead. Some military, someone in that movie that was just a total dick, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, isn't he the one that's kind of telling the blonde girl that she's not good enough, that she's not built for the job that they do, kind of thing?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Isn't Chris Pratt in that also?
Zero Dark 30?
Yeah.
No.
No?
No.
Why am I thinking he was? Like, I remember people were saying that Chris Pratt got super in shape for Guardians of the Galaxy, and I thought they said he's capable of doing it because he did so well in Zero Dark 30 getting built.
No.
No? Okay. Probably thinking of someone else. Or something else. The other people, no, yeah, he is. He's in there. Justin Devgrew.
What?
Yeah, believe it or not. Do a picture, a Google image look for Chris Pratt in Zero Dark 30.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, in fact, let me share this. See if I can do this. Okay. Well, let me do it.
Who don't show YouTube videos.
No?
No.
All right.
Copyright issues.
Gotcha. Let's see if I can bring it back up. Stop. Go back. Here we go. All right, let me share this instead. There we go. Helps when you do There we go. So see, there he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, with this squad of men or whatever. Yeah.
No idea.
Now to go back. How do I go back to me? There we go. Yeah, so kind of crazy because people were saying how he got built for that too. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know a lot about Jason or not Jason. Yeah, Jason Clarke. Now, J.K. Simmons is in the film, and I think J.K. Simmons he's like one of my favorite actors. He'll always be J.J. Jameson. So, and just everything that he's done, like I personally think in that Whiplash film, like he carried that film. He made me love that film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love me some J.K. Simmons too. To me, he's always, I don't remember his name, but what was that prison TV show on HBO?
Oz?
Yeah.
He was in Oz?
He was, wasn't he?
I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't really watch it a lot.
Yeah, he was. He was in Oz. Fucking love that show. And he was in it. And also from Portal 2, Cave Johnson.
The video game?
Yeah. It was awesome. He was funny.
Dude, because I played those with the kids, but we did like we didn't do the real adventure. We just did the little side thing. I didn't know he was in it though. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I liked his role in this film too. Like, I don't know, in a way he kind of helped me tie the timelines together because he remembered. I mean, obviously it wasn't him in that first 1985, 87 time frame, but playing him as that older version of that cop, like, was cool. It was neat that they brought that back into the story.
Right.
And then, of course, for all the Doctor Who fans, we saw Matt Smith in there, who they say played Alex, which I don't think once do they call him Alex, but AKA Skynet, right?
Yeah, he was the embodiment of Skynet.
So that's kind of the cast. A couple things that I thought was kind of cool is in the opening narration of the film, that is Jai Courtney's voice doing a talkover or a speak over, which I thought was interesting because it's almost being narrated as if it's John Connor talking.
That's who I thought it was at first, was John Connor.
Yeah. But then if you notice, the narration continues and he talks about how he was saved as a boy, which is where John Connor comes in and saves him. So I thought that was kind of funny too, because through the whole part of his timeline, he kind of thinks as John Connor is his father, only to find out later that he's John's father.
Which fucked with my head even more. Even though, like, when I was reading back through the synopsis of the previous films, the Terminator that was sent back to protect John actually told him that Kyle was his father in Terminator 2.
Yeah.
You know, they were trying to fix a truck or something, and he told him that because he had never met his father.
Right.
Just lived through a bunch of stepdads that beat him up and shit.
Which, I mean, I'll be honest, if Edward Furlong were my kid, I'd probably beat the shit out of him too.
Yeah, I'd probably kick his ass a time or two.
What else did I have here? We already talked about that. I thought Emilia Clarke was did a good job as Linda Hamilton. A lot of Doctor Who fans would like this. J.K. Simmons is the man. I literally have that on here. J.K. Simmons is the man. Talk about that. So we talked about how we see the rebuild of the scene where Arnold first arrives, and I know that they've done a lot of great things with making people look different. Some films that come to mind is Captain America is the small Chris Evans to the big Chris Evans, and Michael Douglas in Ant-Man. They do a good job on making him look young. So, stay tuned for that. But I thought that they did an awesome job on doing the old Arnold and having that portrayed in the film, so that they could have like the old versus classic fighting each other.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually the next point I was going to make. So when I was watching the movie, I thought that it was all CGI. Like they went back and they rebuilt his body and everything. But then I did some research and found out that they actually found and cast a body double who had the same muscle structure, same muscle size and everything as Arnold in 1984.
That's cool to know.
Nearly identical. So he actually played that part, and then they just CGI'd a young Arnold's face onto his, similar to how they did Captain America, where they put him in the small body. They put Arnold's young face onto that guy's body. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome. And it's funny because back then, Arnold was like the supreme, you can't have a better body than this kind of guy. And now, in our day and age, it's like, yeah, he was all right for that time, but look at what we have now. So, to find a guy that didn't overdo it, still had that muscular structure, and be like, hey, you're the Arnold of 1980, whatever.
Yep. So let's see. Another fun trivia fact was the writers said that they were actually inspired to make this movie by the plot of the second half of Back to the Future 2, where when they traveled back to 1985, they were on a fractured timeline. They basically wanted to do the same thing because they had previously sent a different T-800 back to protect Sarah. So that would have fractured the timeline in a similar fashion that Biff going back to 1955 would have fractured the timeline in 1985 and Back to the Future 2. So
that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Especially because, yeah, I mean, we got the difference between the sports almanac and, and then a robot saving a girl. But I didn't know that. That's actually cool.
But it still messed me up. Like I don't understand so I get the fractured timeline. I get that things are different. I don't get specifically why it delayed Skynet taking over 20 years. And the other thing that threw me off was, okay, so they're Sarah and Kyle are in the hospital getting checked out. And John suddenly shows up to free them. And they go through this whole thing with John proving that he's actually John, only to just minutes later find out that's not actually John. At the beginning of the movie, when Kyle was set back and I think it was a T-8000 or a T-9000, it was Matt Smith's character, basically. Grabbed a hold of John and said, you thought it was going to be that easy? Well, when he grabbed him, he was actually turning him into a cyborg, into an android. He infected his entire body with nanoparticles, nanotechnology that changed him completely on a cellular level into an android. And then apparently sent him back in time. I guess, because how else did he get there as a T-8000?
Yeah, and I actually thought that was kind of a cool idea. The fact that Skynet on its own figured out that by itself, being who it was, there was always going to be the conflict of timelines. That there was always going to be a way for them to try to go back and fight him, and so they thought that the best way to beat it was not only to just find someone that could be both human and cyborg, but or robot or whatever you want to call it, but that it was someone who was always in that space time continuum. And so it could have been John, it could have been Kyle, or it could have been Sarah. And they obviously, because John always led the army, led the fight, that they chose him.
But then they fucked up the whole story by making it John who made Genisys that turned into Skynet. So they turned John into the bad guy. So 30 years of John fighting the bad guy, and he becomes the bad guy. Like that really messed with me.
It does. It messes up with everything. I think, I don't know, it's kind of devious in its own way. He was fighting himself, but only because we had messed up with the timeline so many times in the past that's what it ended up being. And maybe that's why there's the delay.
Yeah. But I guess he essentially created the T-1000. He essentially created, Genisys, which is spelled stupid. When I was typing Genisys, I kept misspelling it. I'm like, this is not how it's fucking spelled.
Yeah. There was a lot of talk actually when the movie came out. They were like, why did they spell it that way? And I remember when I went and saw the film, I kept on thinking that it was an acronym. And so they had to make the E the I, but they never really explained why they spelled it incorrectly.
Yeah, and I know there's jokes and stuff about this, but throughout the movie, there seemed to be a lot of, I guess you'd call it allusions. Yeah, there were a lot of allusions to Skynet that sounded a whole hell of a lot like Google. Everything's being implemented into Google. You can live your entire life on Google, from your phone to your tablet to your computer. Everything could be tied back to Google. So a lot of people have joked over the years that Google is turning into Skynet, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Because they're kind of in line with how everything's been going the last decade or so. Everything's going to mobile. Everything's going to one company running one operating system, and your entire life is integrated into this thing. When you search for something like a location and pull up Google Maps later, it'll ask you if you want to navigate to that place that you searched for 4 hours ago. Everything's integrated into it, which makes life easier, but it's kind of scary to think, like, what if Google is becoming Skynet?
So I agree with you. They did do that in the film. They talked about, like, there's a part where they're walking, I think, through the hospital, and they're talking about the concept of Genisys, and you see like the nurse looking, he's talking to someone, and he mentions Skynet, and that's when Sarah turns and she's like, you know about Skynet? And he's talking to his girlfriend, it seems like, on the phone. But there's a part where they're walking through it, and they talk about how all these devices are connected to people and everyone can't live without them. It's become a main part of their lives, which we hear over and over again. As far as them being Skynet, there's some comparisons, but what's always confused me is how do we get to the point where we have a program that just runs algorithms and actually turns into an AI and starts building robots to essentially terminate the human race? And I think I've read articles about that there's actually laws about building AIs now, that they're starting to build laws because of the concern of what Hollywood is portrayed as, like Skynet, and what could potentially happen. So it's kind of freaky, but at the same time, I don't think Google would ever become them unless they went into the AI business.
Well, but Google owns a company that does a lot of work for DARPA, and DARPA does a lot of work for the military and in advanced technology for military purposes. So it's kind of scary to think about. That's why I usually don't think about it.
It is. It's way scary. I don't know. Like, you have to wonder at some point. Like, one thing that we've always worried about in our society is nuclear war. Who's got the nukes? Who's going to launch them? How do we have them protected? Et cetera, et cetera. And when you start to think about the concepts of advanced warfare, so you mentioned DARPA being aligned with Google, which I didn't know about. That's new to me. But with all the concern and controversy over nukes, why hasn't anyone thought about, like, sending advanced warfare, sending AI robots and things like that? We're already implementing things like drones and things like that to fly over to get information and see where maybe POWs are being held and things like that. But I don't know, like, at that level and even beyond, you have to wonder what's to stop us from saying, yeah, we don't care if we go to war, because there's no more lives that are going to be at risk. We can sit a bunch of people in a call center who controls a robot to do our war for us, and then one step beyond that just says, they've got the AI intelligence to just do it on their own. So it's just kind of freaky.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the name of the company that Google owns that does work for DARPA. I'm sure someone else out there could answer it a lot faster than I have, but I've read about it. Like that robot dog thing, I'm sure you've seen, is developed by the company that Google owns that's doing that work for DARPA.
I think I saw it. Like, it looks and runs kind of like, it acts like a dog, right? It's very agile and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and they're already trying to introduce concepts of AI in the home. Amazon has that device that kind of welcomes you when you walk in the door, and you can talk to it. So it's kind of like Cortana or Siri built into a home base station. But then Karen and I saw this other device that's a lot like that will interact with you. Like, it sits in your home, and then it will say, like, hey, it's got like facial recognition. How are you doing today, Jeremy? Would you like to hear your favorite songs? Da, 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 da. So it's actually interacting with you instead of you having to say a keyword to activate it, which is a little freaky.
It's kind of cool, though.
It is, but that's because it's all nice and friendly. It reminds me of, I told you I went and saw Steve Jobs last weekend, and kind of fun little piece of information, when Steve Jobs was creating the Macintosh, the first one, he had this image in his mind that people were afraid of computers. That when you saw a computer, people figured that you had to be super smart and you had to know how to write code and all that kind of stuff to integrate with it. And so when he designed the Macintosh, he intentionally made it look like a friendly machine. And he said, why do you think the front of it looks like kind of like a happy little smile? The disk drive itself actually looks like a crooked smile, which I thought was interesting. I never noticed that before, but it's true.
All right. Well, so back to the movie. Let's see. Talk about that.
I have something. You mentioned about the timeline being kind of screwy. So we were talking about how John Connor comes in and we find out that he's half man, half machine. and they're walking through the underground parking structure, and she makes a point of, you can't kill us because without us you won't even exist. And he says something like, you're not important anymore. We're just three pieces that seem to float around through this space-time continuum. We're three key pieces. And that threw me off because I had to agree with her. It's Sarah that says it. And I'm like, well, that's true. If you kill them in that timeline, how can you exist even further beyond that? You're going Back to the Future, right? If Marty McFly's parents never meet, then he's never born, then he never exists. Same concept. So how does he think that he still will exist even if he kills them?
Well, because he was born in what, 1994-ish? No, it'd be before that, like 1989 or so. And if he kills them in 2017, the 1989 has already happened. So I don't know. That's where time travel and the space-time continuum are scary. There's a lot of Hollywood spin on the science behind it. There really isn't any solid theories as to what would happen. They just sort of make things up along the way. And that's my biggest problem with time travel movies, is they try and explain it, but as they're trying to explain it, it makes less and less sense. Like, they're in 2017, so killing them in 2017 would have no effect on what happened in 1989, or because they're not even in 1989 anymore. They've traveled to the future. They no longer exist in 1989 or whatever. So John Connor wouldn't have even been born because they're in 2017. It hurts my brain.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is by the end of the film, they've beaten Skynet, but as Arnold puts it, they haven't made it yet. So I guess that alters the timeline even more, because then eventually they are finally going to get together, create a baby, which would mean that John Connor's created in 2018, 2019, and then that really screws with the whole timeline, because we've carried that pair from 1997, 87, whatever the hell the year was, to now, which is where they currently live in that current state. Or is there also a timeline that's going on still back then where they are still meeting and creating him?
So I guess the science, in my mind anyway, would say that, whenever you jump to a point in time, if you change anything on that timeline, it's going to fracture it and create a different timeline. So, maybe them jumping in time from 1984 to 2017 put them on an alternate timeline because they're no longer in the original. You kind of have to have a whiteboard or something to. Oh wait, here I can do this. Give me 1 second. Doodle. I know there's an app for that. Hang on. Okay.
This is a weekend Hangouts first going on here.
Oh, face. What the hell is this? Okay. So, I don't know if this is going to work. Okay. So, here's the timeline, right? What the hell is going on here? Okay. So, here's the timeline. It's 19. Oh, God damn it. It's not working. I don't like this app. Go away. Ah, here we go. Here's a different app. Wow. Go away. Okay, Script Doodle. Okay. Why isn't it working? What the fuck just happened? All right. I'm starting to change my mind about this whole thing. Okay, timeline. Okay, so here they are in 1984, and they're going to jump to 2017. This is stupid. Take the easy route.
They should have the capability to allow you to type too. What's in the stamps? Oh, there's a text. See on your doodle, there's the text option.
Fuck that. Okay.
Or we can go back to paint.
Go to paint. All right, because I can draw a straight line this way. And they sort of explain this on Big Bang Theory, and I'm like, oh, hey, that makes sense. Okay, so here's a timeline. And then we have 1984. Okay, when they travel forward to 2017, let's put 2017 up here. Oh, son of a bitch. 2017. Okay, and then let's put 2029 up here just for shits and giggles because that's where they were at the beginning of the film. Okay, so they're in 1984. They travel to 2017, but they're no longer in 1984, so they're fracturing the timeline and creating a new timeline. Okay, so they're on this alternate timeline. And see, originally the apocalypse happened in 1997, but since they're in an alternate timeline because the original Terminator that went back, they're now on an alternate timeline where it's going to happen in 2017 on this timeline, which makes this 2029 that they originally were at and at the beginning of the movie no longer makes sense. The problem there is that when they were in 2017, they destroyed Skynet, thereby creating another alternate timeline and changing the future. So when they went and talked to the young Kyle at the end, they're now on a new timeline, at which point where they're probably making Whoopi in 2017, and John Connor's born in 2018 now, instead of back here in the original timeline. They now exist on this timeline.
That makes sense.
So, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to. That's why time travel is a really horrible idea, because I don't think the smartest scientist in the world could really wrap their head around it enough to, to make it work without fucking things up.
Yeah, I agree. Because you mentioned even the fact that Kyle goes back to the younger Kyle at the end of the film and kind of gives him a message, which he's supposed to say to himself every day, which you see in the flashback, but at the same time, he's telling him that the attack in Skynet happens in 2017, which is the very thing that they just stopped happening.
Right. So, I mean, they went and told him that to ensure that if this thing comes up in his future, they'll stop it, or he'll stop it, because they told him that. But yeah, I don't know. It's all weird.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Plus, they had to tie together everything that happened in the past, which created the memory in the first place. Yeah.
So the moral of the story is don't fuck with time travel. As great as it sounds, it's a horrible fucking idea, probably.
Yeah. It reminds me, I think we talked about this before. You're not watching the new Heroes Reborn, right?
I am.
You are. Okay, so Too Many Butterflies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if our people who watch this, if you don't understand what I'm saying, you got to watch the most recent episode of Heroes Reborn.
Well, he didn't have a problem smashing the fuck out of some butterflies in the second season of Heroes, third season of Heroes, though, when he went back to ancient fucking China.
Right. Well, he learned from his lessons.
Yes.
I only have a couple other things. So, Arnold is known for doing his lines, his what am I trying to say? Quotes, famous quotes in films.
I'll be back.
Right, and we get that. We get the "I'll be back." What I thought was funny is, I swear that Arnold says this to Sarah when he first meets her in part 1, but she says it in this one where she cranks open the bus door and says, "Come with me and I'll save your life," or "Come with me and I'll save you," or something like that.
Come with me if you want to live.
That's what it is. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool that she calls that back. Some of the other things that I like that he says is old, not obsolete. So I liked that. And I also like when he gets upgraded. First of all, I love the fact that he gets upgraded to like a T1000. And then he says, "Not gone, upgraded."
I don't know how he got upgraded though, falling into the pool of the metal stuff, because they made it clear in I believe it was Terminator 2. Yeah, it was when the first T1000 showed up. They made it clear that because they were built differently, there's no way that they could ever upgrade the T800 to a T1000 by adding the liquid metal feature, I guess. So when they did it in this movie, it kind of shit on the other one.
It does, but then I was thinking about the part in this film where the new T1000, the Asian dude, is walking past the broken down old Terminator, and he throws a piece of himself into it to bring it back to life. And so I thought, well, if he can do that, maybe that's kind of the same concept of him falling in that pool and whatever those laser things are doing, readapted him into a new thing. Plus, like, a lot of the film is based off of that chip in his head. So I'm wondering if, as long as the chip exists, they can create whatever they want, as long as that chip still has whatever identity it is that creates Arnold.
That's always been something that's killed me, though, about these movies is the T1000. Like, there's no... Well, and I guess even the T5000 or whatever they turned John Connor into. There's no... Where do you put the processor? Where do you put the CPU? You know, if they can be 100% liquid at any given time, where's the CPU?
That's true. I don't. Maybe it's nanobytes too, but I have no idea. I have no idea.
What I thought was kind of funny was the new upgraded John Connor. We'll have to look it up again, but I think he was a T5000 or T8000. They didn't really say it in the movie, but someone else said it. Anyway, it kind of seemed like they stole that from Big Hero 6 with the nanobots. He morphed and stuff just like the nanobots.
I'm gonna have to see it again because I forgot that part. Are you talking about the actual the white Stay Puffy looking dude?
No, the little black robots that Hero creates.
That's right. Yeah, that makes him win the science contest.
Yeah. So like when John Connor's like morphing around and stuff, you see all the things move around and they look like the nanobots from Big Hero 6. It's like
That's true.
They got a hold of Hero's technology and put it into John Connor.
Maybe there will be a tie-in. So
Just how my stupid head works. Anyway.
The other thing that I have is that I like that when they killed the T-1000 for the second time. So in the first one, for some reason, I was thinking that they killed the T-1000 also in the liquid hot lava, and so he was trying to morph into something, but he kept on remelting and remelting, and he couldn't survive.
Yeah.
I like that in the new one, they had all those barrels of acid that she shoots at that causes him to kind of slowly melt. The thing that really threw me off, though, is so as they're killing him, right, he's making it out of the acid, and then Arnold, the old T-800, grabs him and holds him in the acid longer to make sure that he completely dies. But yet Arnold stays like together. Like, I get the fact that after she hurries and sprays him with what I'm guessing is probably like some kind of nitrogen or something that gets rid of the acid, but even still, if it's killing that robot, shouldn't have his arm fell off altogether?
The only thing that I can assume is it was because it was a different metal, and the acid that they poured on him probably didn't affect the metal that the T-800 is made with. It's the only thing.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And then the last thing that I had in my notes is something to think about. Well, I know I have two more things, but one of those is so there's the whole concept of John Connor being half man, half machine. And as the film progresses, we find out a couple of things. One, the skin that Arnold wears, the T-800, is like human skin. It's our type of skin. So it ages, and that explains why we have old Arnold in the latest timeline when he meets them in 2017. But what I thought was interesting is that when they're in the bunker, she looks at the wall and she sees that he saved her old boombox with her cassette, and then she looks at the wall and all of the pictures that he's ever made her are hanging on the wall, kind of like memories. And then you notice that, like, even in 2017, Arnold says something, and Kyle Reese goes, "Is that a joke? Is he learning how to joke?" And then he's also competing against Kyle Reese by loading the gun, right? And that's when you first hear, old, but he goes, but not obsolete. So I'm thinking, is Arnold slowly starting to get a personality? Is he slowly becoming more human? What do you think?
I just think that because he's a computer and he's adaptive. He's just learning, the tricks of humor slowly, and just integrating him into his system. I don't know.
Why save the pics though? Like their memories or something?
I don't know. Might be comforting to her. I don't know. He built that bunker just for them, knowing that they were coming back and they were going to destroy the place. So
true. Just something I thought was kind of interesting, like very human side of things.
I must have been dozing off at that point because I watched it. I think I finished it at about 2 a.m. last night, so kind of sleepy.
Yeah, that's a late time to be watching the film. The last thing that I had in my notes was just the mid-credit surprise. Did you catch that?
Yeah, where the actual core was in a different offsite location.
Yeah.
Sequel. Yep.
And then if you want to read into it a little bit, you notice as Skynet's getting more matured or more to completion, you see him slowly becoming Matt Smith. So he starts as a child, and then his speed. Well, at the end, when it shows the core, you see he's back to a child again.
Yeah, because that's probably the redundancy that's built into the system. It has a core base, but then at the actual location of Skynet, which by the way was Oracle's headquarters in San Francisco, all the updated stuff is in the front end system in San Francisco, but the actual core stuff to keep it redundant is saved somewhere else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like a contingency plan.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Well, that's all the notes that I have. What did you have any additional notes?
No, that's I think we covered just about everything I wanted to talk about.
Awesome. So if you were to rate it, I know at the very beginning you said something along the lines that complete waste of time. What would you rate the film?
Well, I mean, it held my attention the whole time. It was what, 2 hours and a little over 2 hours, I think. It held my attention the whole time. So, I mean, if we're rating it out of 5, I'd give it a 4. I was confused as hell about the timeline, and it really didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But as we've sort of talked through these things, it makes a little more sense now. So I thought it was good. I thought it was decent. Yeah, I give it 4 out of 5.
I give it I like that we talked about it because it does give me more appreciation and makes more sense. I think the fact that it came back, we had Terminator 4, which sucked, and it made a lot of people lose hope in the whole franchise. So I would have to agree. I give it probably 3.5 to a 4. I've seen it twice now. I don't have another desire to see it again.
Rarely watch a movie more than twice.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I'm not a rewatcher person anyway, so that hinders it a little bit. But yeah, I think I feel safe 3.5, 4 out of 5 would be safe.
Cool. All right, well that's going to do it for us here. I don't know what movie to do next. Maybe we can talk about that over the next day or so. You can figure it out.
All right, so we'll talk about it, and then we'll touch base next week to cover that film. If you like the film or you like our reviews, then please subscribe. Leave any comments at the bottom. And what else?
Like the video, share with your friends, follow us on Google Plus. We need to get a Facebook started up just for giggles, and maybe a Twitter, maybe an Instagram. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Anyway, just follow us, like the video, please subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Until then, we'll see everybody.